and how to use them for multi-tenancy. First, I'll run this script to install necessary objects in Kubernetes. This script takes a couple of minutes to create necessary CIDs. Okay, it's done. Let's take a look at what kind of objects has been created. First, we created a monitoring namespace, and we created a Prometheus operator, and we created some CID objects, like Prometheus and alert manager. Prometheus operator will create a stateful set according to this CIDs. Yeah, two stateful set has been created. And we also created some service monitor. Yes, once service monitor is mapped to a kind of endpoint in Kubernetes. For example, we can take a look at Kube Controller Manager. In this service monitor means to monitor Kube Controller Manager and the default namespace endpoint. And because Controller Manager in PKS is a process, so I created a fake endpoint for them. Yeah, you can see that. This is a fake endpoint, but anyway, the purpose is to expose the matrix URL, so Prometheus can scrape metrics from these endpoints. Let's take a look at the Prometheus and the Grafana UI. The three services are exposed with external IP. This is the Prometheus service. This is the Grafana, and this is the alert manager. Let's first take a look at Prometheus. Let's take a look at the targets. Metrics target. Prometheus will scrape metrics from coding as, from API server, from controller manager, and scheduler, state metrics, kubelet, C advisor, and the node exporter. And the Grafana, the Grafana is a very good build a very good UI for filter metrics, and see you can customize a lot of you can customize dashboards. The first time you log in, you need to change the admin password. There's some default dashboard here. You can see it's designed for Kubernetes, and this is for API server. And this is for controller manager. And scheduler. For pods. Yeah, we can choose different namespace and pods running in this namespace. So far, so good. And Prometheus can not only monitor the cluster metrics, it can also monitor or script metrics from applications. For example, if you have a application in a specific namespace, you can add those pod as endpoint to Prometheus targets. Let's take a look at the sample here. What I did here is I created a namespace, sales, and I created some pods in this namespace. Let's take a look. There's 3 replicas for this deployment. And I also created a service monitor to monitor, to get metrics from these pods. Oh, I used the wrong namespace. The default Prometheus just watch service instance in monitor namespace. This service monitor will scrape metrics from in sales namespace and on those pods with these labels. Let's take a look at Prometheus targets. It shows up in 3 pods. Yeah. We can take a look at the IP here. Yes, 2434. We scrape metrics from this endpoint, and we can create a new dashboard. And this application produce a special metrics label. This is the label. It generated from this pod we can see here. And there are 3 pods here, 2, 3, 4, and the metrics my app processed ops total increase every second. We can save it as a customized dashboard. We call it sales app. And we can find this app, we can find this dashboard. We can find this dashboard in dashboard list. But how can we, all the metrics are collected to a single Prometheus instance. And there's no multi-tenancy, all data are there. How can we use different Prometheus instance for multi-tenancy? Here I have an example to create another Prometheus instance. Maybe it could be Kato apply and tenant example. What I did here, I created just imagine you have a department finance, and so I created a finance namespace. And in this namespace, I created a QB state matrix. This is important. I add some parameters here, and this state matrix just collect the pod, node, and other Kubernetes objects from finance namespace. And I created a couple of, I created a deployment with 4 replicas in application. And I also created a Prometheus instance. You can see the Prometheus instance here. Besides the instance for cluster monitoring, I created another stateful set for finance department. And this is the service to exposing Prometheus instance for finance department. And I also created a service monitors just for monitoring finance namespace, every object in finance namespace. Yeah, this is used for Kubernetes object monitoring. This is used for application level metrics collection. Let's take a look at the Prometheus UI. Let's take a look at the targets here. We have 2 targets, state metrics and metrics application. If we do some query here, like QB pod info here, let's execute. It takes some time for kube state metrics to work, and Yes, you have to wait some while. And from here, you can see that we only get part metrics from namespace finance, and we can also see the customized metrics from application. Yeah, these are the 4 new pod here. Yeah, Prometheus script metrics from this 4 pod. Okay, and the last thing is to create a dashboard, a customized dashboard, and create a user for finance department to watch and query metrics. First, I'm going to create a organization, new organization, finance. Then I'm going to add a data source for this organization. It's a Prometheus instance we just created. Let's name it Prometheus Finance, and we need the service URL here. Let's save it and test it. Next thing is to create a user. Let's create a user. Then I will add this user to this organization. And I'll remove this user from default organization. Now I can sign out and log in as another user. Here I use the user I created just now. You can see here I can see nothing, but I can create the dashboard for finance department. Let's select the Prometheus instance and then type my app metrics. You can see here, yeah, there are 4 pods here generating the metrics and generate the count and increase every second. And we can also see the pod metrics. Yeah, there are totally 5 pods here: state metrics and the metrics app, and we can filter any metrics from these pods, from this namespace, and the user can only get metrics from this namespace. In this way, we can deploy different Prometheus for different tenant, and they can only get what, and the metrics are really isolated. Okay.